You ever wonder what really makes a major player in the global energy market tick? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of Indonesia's thermal coal giants. We're going to see how they managed to pull off some staggering financial success in a year that was also packed with huge operational challenges. All right, let's dive right in. So here's the game plan for a look at PT Golden Energy Mines, or GEMS for short. First, we'll get to know who they are. Then we'll walk through a pretty wild year for the company, break down all the numbers, take a peek at their strategy, and wrap up with what the future might just hold for them. Okay, first up, let's meet the main character in our story today. Who exactly is Golden Energy Mines? So we're talking about a major holding company here, and their operations are spread all across some of Indonesia's most resource-rich areas. We're talking South Sumatra, Jambi, and both South and Central Kalimantan. Now, this is a really key point. GEMS isn't just one single mine. You got to think of it more like a whole network of companies, all operating under this one big umbrella. And that gives them control over some really significant coal reserves and, of course, some serious production power. This little table here, it really gives you the company's DNA. So it's been a public company for over a decade now. But check this out. Its majority shareholder is actually based in Singapore. That adds a pretty interesting international flavor to this Indonesian mining powerhouse. Okay, now let's get to the really interesting part, the year 2021. Because for GEMS, this was a year that was just full of conflict. It perfectly captured this tension between a massive opportunity and a huge challenge. I mean, it was a total paradox, right? On one hand, you have the global market just screaming for their product, with prices absolutely skyrocketing. But on the other hand, Mother Nature was literally getting in their way, with tons of rain making it tough to get the coal out of the ground. And you can really feel the pressure they were under right here, in their own words from their annual report. So you've got this battle between a red-hot market and a super wet mining season. How did that all shake out on the balance sheet? Well, the result was absolutely staggering. Despite all those production problems, their gross profit didn't just inch up, it exploded. We're talking nearly doubling in just 1 year. That is a massive, massive leap. A number that big, you know we've got to zoom in and break it down. So let's take a look at the key figures that tell the story of this just incredible financial performance. And you can see the jump right here, clear as day. They went from around $379 million in 2020 to over $756 million in 2021. It's just a perfect picture of a company firing on all financial cylinders, even with things holding them back. And this is why that profit jump was so huge. The story isn't just about how much coal they sold, it's about how much money they made on each sale. They went from making about $11.50 a ton to $26 a ton. That is more than double the profit on every single lump of coal. All right, but hold on. This is where the story takes a little twist. With profits just soaring through the roof, you'd think the company's total value, its equity, would go up too, right? Well, it actually went down. So what in the world is going on here? Well, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. They shared the wealth. The company made a huge decision to pay out a massive $125 million dividend. So even though the business was making tons of money, a big piece of that value was intentionally sent straight back to the investors. And that's why the company's total equity on the books actually dipped. And you know that decision to reward shareholders? It's the perfect lead-in to our next section. Let's move past the pure financials for a minute, because to really get a company, you have to look at its character, how it's managed, how it deals with risk, and what its vision is for the future. So, if you read their official reports, you'll see GEMS talks a lot about good corporate governance. Now, in plain English, that's basically the company's promise to run things responsibly, to be transparent, and to be ethical. And that's absolutely crucial for building trust with investors. And here is a fantastic, real-world example of their strategy. Think about a major risk like fuel prices. That's a huge expense in mining. Well, instead of just crossing their fingers, they've got a clear 3-step playbook. Get more efficient, use less fuel, and when prices get crazy, renegotiate their contracts. It's a really proactive way to handle uncertainty. And it's not just about the money. They also lay out this big public commitment to sustainability. They talk about balancing people, planet, and prosperity. And they even have a vision for what comes after the mining is done, creating an agro-ecotourism community. And for safety, they have a digital system so employees can easily report any hazards they see. Okay, so what does this all add up to? After such a huge year, let's try and unpack the balance of what's coming next for GEMS, the challenges and the opportunities. When you look to the future, you see this classic balancing act. On one side, you've got the risks that come with the territory. Coal prices go up and down, the weather can mess things up, and costs can be volatile. But on the other side, they've got these core strengths. The market loves the quality of their coal, they take care of their shareholders, and they lock in some real stability with long-term sales deals. And for anyone watching the stock, this part is absolutely crucial. The company has publicly stated its intention to give back at least 30% of its net profit to shareholders. Of course, they balance that with what they need to reinvest in the business, but it's a very clear signal about their financial strategy. Which brings us to our final big thought. GEMS has proven, without a doubt, that it can be incredibly profitable when the market is right. But the biggest question of all still remains. In a world that is clearly changing its relationship with energy, can a company built on coal use the profits of today to build a truly resilient future for tomorrow?